It is now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Maya Ackerman, CEO and co-founder of Wave AI and renowned worldwide as a pioneer in the field of generative AI. She stands as an early advocate for human-centered AI, emphasizing its potential to increase human creativity. Thank you so much, Dr. Maya Ackerman.
All right, so you already know a lot about generative AI. So I guess the value of listening to any specific speaker is to get a feel for their specific insights and kind of the way that their experiences help them see the space. So that's what I hope to communicate today as we kind of walk through the generative AI journey the way that I've experienced it. Generative AI is really old, really, really old. It was not born in November. My experience in November of 2022 was that me and my friends have been playing in this awesome little sandbox, and then suddenly the entire planet cares about our little sandbox. It was surreal. I'd wake up every day, not sure if I actually woke up. So I had the pleasure of joining the computational creativity research community back around 2015. My department head in my old job was not very pleased with me for going into a niche topic, and I quote, that nobody cares about. So yeah, times have changed. So let's talk a little bit about the prehistory. There has been so much beautiful work done around generating music and art and dance choreographies and recipes dating back to about the 1950s. By the 1980s, we already had really beautiful systems such as AMI, Experiments in Musical Intelligence, by David Cope, who was a professor out of UC Santa Cruz. In fact, he brought in a piece in the style of Bach to a music conference, and everybody was super excited that the new Bach was discovered. And then, shockingly, everybody got super mad when they realized that it was in fact computer generated. So this whole idea of creating amazing art that some people are excited about using generative AI, that other people are super angry about, is something that has been happening at a very small scale for a very long time. Then we also had this wonderful, wonderful work by Harold Cohen, a late professor out of UC San Diego. He was actually the very first generative AI researcher that I've ever met. I don't know if he ever had a chance to think of himself in these terms. I attended ITA, it's Information Theory and Applications Workshop in San Diego. I believe that was 2014. And I saw this guy on stage, this guy, getting really, really angry that people were calling his system creative. Like, really mad. He's like, I was the only voice of reason saying that I was the creative one, not the computer. So he had this certain perspective. He built a system called Aaron, which made art in his style. It was an expert system. It wasn't using machine learning or, large models or anything, but it did a kind of a wonderful job. It started with abstracts, then he taught it how to draw, people and scenes. He did really, really beautiful work. And all of this stuff was happening, and nobody cared. And nobody knew, not really. Not even Google was doing it back then. So how did this happen? How did this rise to public consciousness? And I'm sure that you've seen different talks that kind of cover this from different points of view. This is sort of how I've seen this develop. So for a long time, it was purely in academia. Then Google got involved, and the moment Google got involved, we all care, right? They came up with Deep Dream, these, it's really small here, but these kind of hallucinatory images. What happened there is, usually in image recognition, you're looking at the picture and you're actually trying to figure out what's really there. They had a bug in their system that accidentally found ways to create what they were looking for. So this kind of, I mean, we've all had this experience, every single one of us. For me, this was when I was in college and I broke up with my boyfriend, and I'd go around and I would manage to see him everywhere. Where, of course, he wasn't, until one day there was a kind of short Asian woman that I mistaken for a tall blonde guy, and I was like, okay, this needs to stop. So we all hallucinate on a small scale, right? Except that this system does it on purpose. So you can give it a picture of a dog, and it's going to sort of create it everywhere, all over the image. The Deep Dream, I believe they sold a picture made with it for $1 million, but that's brand. That's not necessarily because amazing pictures were not made with computers before that point. And then like crazy things like 1 million articles claiming to write the very first AI song. How many very first AI songs can possibly exist? It's fascinating. So the company started getting some attention around it. IBM Watson was really kind of a combination of disjoint AI systems that did all kind of stuff like, Watson Beats made some kind of music, and then they had Watson Chef, all kind of cool stuff. Again, it got a lot more media attention than any researchers did in the space. And Microsoft turned out to be a really important player in this whole story. Microsoft Tay was one of the systems that ended up causing them challenges. Released in 2016, it lasted online for under 16 hours. And it is awkward to say that today, but within 16 hours, it has become incredibly anti-Semitic and a Holocaust denier. So, yeah, a strange moment to bring that back to mind. So Microsoft, with that blunder, along with other ones, kind of learned their lesson to not associate their brand with dangerous AI systems that might end up saying horrible things. And at some point decided to have an extra appendage called OpenAI that's beautifully dissociated from their brand. Right? It's really it's majority owned by Microsoft, but we all think of it as a separate entity, which had all their GPT models, had DALL-E. And that wasn't enough, somehow. Somehow, all of this amazing stuff that OpenAI was doing was not enough. But then Stability AI came around with their own version of DALL-E that they took from Runway ML, and suddenly the entire investment ecosystem woke up. Generative AI became in the public consciousness. Once investors care, companies care, and that's how the whole world ended up caring. All right, that's enough for an introduction to how we ended up here. Let's talk about some fun high-level ideas. This is going to be at a bit of a higher level of abstraction than perhaps some of the other talks. Should be an interesting complement. AI is made in our own image. It's not exactly like us, but our own brains are the motivation, right? A lot of you here know quite a bit about machine learning, so this is probably not news. They're like an interesting child of humanity. They're not exactly better or worse. They're different. They have a massive advantage. They learn from the kind of quantities of data we can never, ever, ever hope to learn from. We can never hope to consume the amount of data that these machines learn from. They are also much more accurate than us. If they want to, they remember things perfectly. I'm feeling like I'm telling you things you know at this point. Where it gets really interesting, where I feel that their biggest potential is they're able to beautifully explore the space of creative possibilities. Human beings, even when we're being creative, are kind of repetitive creatures. Even if you look at a famous artist or a famous songwriter, they have a style, okay? It's even considered a good thing to have a style, which really means that they're kind of repetitive in the way that they explore the space of creative possibilities. Machines don't have these limitations. Maybe they don't know what's valuable for us, but they're going to explore the space like no human ever could. At the same time, they don't have emotions and agency, which is notable. Our emotional makeup is not decorative. Human beings can't make the most basic decisions if the emotional part of their brain has been damaged for any reason. They can't decide what to wear in the morning. if they can't feel properly. So the fact that machines operate without feelings is a very interesting difference in the way that our kind of intelligence and creative capabilities differ from theirs. And at least at the moment, human beings retain a big advantage when it comes to cohesion. So ChatGPT was a big step forward as far as writing coherent creative artifacts of some kind. If you ask it to tell a story about Stanford on a warm, sunny day that aliens came to visit us, it will write something coherent. But it probably won't write something coherent that's necessarily worth reading, that we will consider the high-quality work of art. So it used to be that anything beyond a few sentences would just completely meander and lose all coherency. Now it can be coherent, but it has trouble being coherent and highly valuable at the same time, for creative tasks at least. So, creative people maintain some kind of advantage here. So what I focus on is creativity, as you picked up, so probably by now. So if we want to have systems that genuinely elevate human creativity, or that meaningfully contribute to the creativity in our world, there are a few interesting concepts to consider. And one is this kind of seeming dichotomy between co-creativity, a human working with a machine on a creative task, versus autonomous creativity, the machine being creative all by itself. In reality, this is a spectrum. And often there is confusion around it. So ChatGPT is a really interesting example because it's sort of presented like a fully autonomous thing. Oh, ChatGPT does this. Here is something done with ChatGPT. But in reality, most of the most interesting use cases are actually highly iterative. But the interface is not entirely well designed for it. So there's kind of this wobbly thing that happens in industry these days where they have a system that's sort of co-creative, the interface does not lean into that, and it's kind of positioned as autonomous. Clarity around this and sort of clear vision around it, I believe, can make a lot of products much better. Convergence versus divergence is my favorite one. Okay, so convergent applications is things where there is a notion of truth and falsehood. So if you ask, in what city is Stanford located, you want the correct answer. You don't want imaginative responses, right? If you ask, when was the US founded? Again, you want the correct answer. When you ask, give me a line of lyrics, or even, come up with a new recipe, there is no right answer per se. And so convergent is when there is a right answer. And convergent is when there is a right answer. Divergent is when there is no right answer. There's lots of possibilities to explore. When you build a machine learning model, you need to know which way you're going. If you're going convergent, that's going to affect how you treat the data, how you build the model, how you iterate it. If you're going divergent, you're going to make different choices at every step of the way. So what happens right now with ChatGPT is people are like, oh, they would take the weaknesses of ChatGPT, which is a convergent model. It's trying to tell the truth about stuff. And then they assume that generative AI has inherent convergent limitations because ChatGPT does, right? Okay. So it's important to keep in mind that ChatGPT's creative capabilities are being hindered by the fact that OpenAI is trying to build a chatbot that gives you correct answers. Machine hallucinations, we all hear about that. I really think that we should lean into that. I really think that using generative AI for convergent use cases where it's supposed to tell us the truth is a little bit like trying to bend something out of shape, It's just not very good at it. It's not very good at being accurate. It's inherently divergent, imaginative technology. And if we plug it into systems where its imagination is valuable, or when we understand that we're dealing with an imaginative being of sorts, then we really can overcome a lot of the worst problems with generative AI. It's, at the moment at least, without really substantial innovation, it's not good methodology for ascertaining the truth. It's just not. It's imaginative at every level. You just saw, some examples from a previous talk about a researcher discovering that they died by using it. I mean, it's crazy. We cannot rely on it, and we shouldn't. And it should not have been called a chatbot, but that's a separate issue. So yeah, I think the hallucinations are wonderful if we all agree that this is what's happening. Okay, this is getting more and more like kind of leaning into my more subjective opinions as the talks goes on. This is my favorite one, collective consciousness. So I think that if we can just for a second hold off on the fact that there are real problems and just know that we'll get there. Just kind of look at the positive side here. In many ways, generative AI is a fascinating and almost like awe-inspiring step in human evolution. We've spent decades figuring out how to create art and music and stories and so many other creative things. Then we built an internet and we started putting all the data there, over decades. And then we built this machine that can learn from all this data and be creative in ways that none of us ever could be. I'm not saying it's per se better than us, but it's definitely doing stuff that none of us can do, even together. It's crazy. I mean, anybody who's tried Midjourney, you have to admit this is wild, the kind of creativity that some of these systems are capable of. And so if we for a moment forget greed and forget copyright and forget who benefits from what and who's winning and who's losing, just look at it as a totality of humanity and what generative AI is enabling for us, it's just one of the most amazing things that ever happened. Anyways, I feel like there's a lot of positive here that sometimes gets lost in the shuffle, gets lost in the details, and gets lost in the fact that our political and economic systems are not very well suited for it. But that's not exactly a weakness with it necessarily. It's a sort of fit problem that perhaps challenges us in new ways. Okay, I promised to get to the dark side very briefly. Collective unconscious. You have the collective consciousness, and then you have the collective unconscious, right? Like the stuff that we wish wasn't true. And again, the last talk did such an amazing job kind of pointing out very specific examples around this. None of us wants to admit that we have some sexist and racist tendencies, but the truth is that we all do, if you actually look into this. Every single person carries this dark side of humanity to various degrees, and the less we're aware of it, the more in denial of it we are, actually the more likely we are to fall into these traps. And the AI is trained on our data. So it is very much all these things as well. It carries the entire dark side of humanity. And then we look at it as if we look in our own mirror and we get mad at the mirror. How dare the mirror be exactly like us? I don't know how to fix it. I really don't. I think it's such a big problem. I'm kind of intrigued by the idea of having it default to a human if it doesn't know what to do. But then the human is going to have the same problems. Right? So maybe it's a call to fix ourselves. Pretty desperate call because it has really serious problems as far as discrimination. Okay, we have about 11 minutes. So I want to show you kind of my life's work, the systems that I started as a researcher, kind of designed originally to solve my own problems with songwriting. Because in parallel to my education in computer science, I learned how to sing and then wanted to write songs, and it was hard. So we built these systems, and I could write better songs with them. And for 3 years, we did research and published papers. And then we're like, nobody's going to use it if we just publish papers about it. And so we opened the company for the past 6.5 years. This has been a major endeavor. So let's see if we can together make a little bit of music. All right, let's do a little pop song. It's going to be a 4-liner. Shout out some topics. Heartbreak. Now we're talking. One more. Hope. Perfect. We are going to write a song Okay, so this is a beginner use case. This is how somebody new to songwriting might use our system. One sec. Okay, now you can see it a bit better. Does anything speak to you on the right here? If you shout out a number, I will know the number of the line to go for. 3. I'm standing, I'm going to remove the and. Now I'm standing, let's just say I'm standing in the pouring rain. And that will generate another suggestion. This is all our own custom lyrics models. And I could talk for an hour about why they're better than ChatGPT for lyrics. But we don't care anymore. We just want to make a song. Okay, I'm standing in the pouring rain. 1 or 4? 1. But you don't know my pain. You don't know. Okay, this is good. This is working out. You let it slide away. I'm just gonna keep, what a difference a year makes. This is really depressing. I'll never sleep again. I'm never gonna sleep again. Forget it. You ruined my life. Okay, one more line. One more line. Okay. All the time I wasted, okay, this is not what I deserve. I have faith in, this is really dark. If I die before I wake. Okay, that's it, this is what we're doing. I'm standing in the pouring rain, but you don't know my pain. I will never sleep again if I die before I wake. Oh, okay, this is apparently our collective song here. But hold on, it gets better. We are gonna put it to music. It deserves a minor key. Sure, looks good. Got a chord progression, I'm gonna paste in the lyrics, and now, remember how I told you about the search space? There's infinite possibilities for how you could sing, I'm standing in the pouring rain. Infinite possibilities, so many ways to sing it. Let's discover some of them. I'm standing in the pouring rain. Melody Studio. I like the piano better. I'm standing in the pouring rain. Not too bad. I'm standing in the pouring rain. It's pretty good. I have way too much fun with this. Perfect. I'm standing in the pouring rain. You know, one of the most important skills for my computer science job is to be able to sing. You never know. Oh, but you don't know my pain. You don't know. Okay. Almost there, 2 more lines. And then we'll have our song. Now you can edit everything. Like one really important principle in both products is that when the person wants to do something, they can do it themselves, and then the AI starts to follow you. That's really key. We are not slaves to the AI. I will never sleep again. You can also generate similar melodies, you know, if you want to dig deeper, but we're not going to do that because we want to do it quickly. Last line, then we'll sing it all. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to attempt to sing along. I succeed to various degrees. I'm standing in the pouring rain, but you don't know my pain. I will never sleep again if I die before I wake. We got a bit of a song here. Thanks very much. A little bit of context about this since I have some time. Or is this question time? Or is this still me talking time? I just done one sentence because there's already questions. My one sentence is over 1 million songs were made with this, including #1 hits and songs that have gone viral. So you may have listened to music made with our tech. All right. Thank you so much.
Wonderful performance.
Thank you.
And we absolutely enjoy it. But like many other art, like from painting, literature, and everything, copyright is one of the most critical and controversial in the discussion of now AI can create music, can create literature, can create paintings. Then who own it? And what happened if this song might happen to be in the database of all the songs that we have made before, just by very little chance, probability. Then what happened to all the legal system have to update? Have you thought about that before? And
Yeah.
I have many customers asking me for this.
I'm forced to think about this all the time. Great question. Copyright, what do we do? I really, really, really think that our copyright system, our economic system, nothing is well geared for generative AI, and it's not entirely generative AI's fault. It's just not a good fit. But we live in the world that we live in, so what do? First of all, we need to avoid blatant abuse. There are things that we know are wrong, even if they're not yet illegal. Don't write a Taylor Swift song and publish it, and without informing or sharing any money with Taylor Swift, And yet, this type of stuff, in this vein is happening, right? People are taking advantage of the fact that there are gaps in the law that have not been formalized. So I think the best we can do in the meantime, while the law is being figured out, is attempt to at least act ethically, at least attempt to do the right thing, even while the law is unclear. In terms of who owns it, if it's not imitating anybody directly, we should try to build models that don't make it possible to imitate anybody, even by accident. There are ways to do this. The most popular models make no effort in this direction. I don't know why. But if it's really original work that's not imitating anybody, give it to whoever used the system. These AI systems don't need copyrights. They're so infinitely imaginative. The copyright system is not well geared for a creature that can create this much. So let the humans have it whenever possible. That's my sort of general position. Great question. Yeah.
I'm a music player. I'm a musician, so I'm also really interested in AI generated music. But I have a question: is when the machine learning create the music pieces, or I can say compose a music, how could people value the music quality of these pieces? For example, my husband is also an engineer, but I don't trust his taste of music. I think he's kind of bad taste of music. So if he is the engineer of my company, that would be piece of, yeah, so that's my question.
My question is, if we have engineers in the mix, are we just destroying all music quality? It's a great question. I've never gotten that one. I love it. I love it. I think the only way to create a musical AI startup or a visual art startup with generative AI, anything creative plus generative AI, is you need the artist to be heavily involved, as heavily as possible. In my company, I'm a musician. My co-founders are musicians, sort of in addition to computer scientists. And that prevents this illusion, it prevents us coming in and claiming to know what music is without knowing what it is. You see that sometimes in generative art, that a computer scientist comes in and they have their idea of what art is, but actually they're wrong because they didn't bother working very closely with artists to understand what art is, right? So you end up with a really superficial understanding of the kind of domain that you're trying to solve. So you need to work with musicians very, very closely. We can't count on the computer scientists to know what music is. That's my short answer, leaning into your fears.
Okay, thank you so much.
Do we have time for
one more question. So do you got any feedback from the customers or somebody purchasing and
So much feedback.
Okay.
Every day. We have feedback everywhere on our ads, in our email box. We have about 1,500 people a day. A lot of them, yeah. And there's also what's called implicit feedback, which is just watching how they use the system, right? There is what people tell you, which includes their beliefs and hopes and dreams. and fears. And then there is their actual behavior on the platform, which is called implicit feedback. And you learn a lot from how people actually behave on your platform. Do they come back? What part of the systems do they actually end up using it? How do they end up using it? So you learn a lot from that too. That all we have is feedback.
Okay, thank you.
Great questions. Thank you so much.